Thanks for listening to the Drinks.com podcast, the business of online alcohol. I'm your host, Brandon Amoroso, and today I'm talking with Joe Chura, who's the founder and CEO at Go Brewing. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Brandon, for having me.
So before we jump into things here, can you give everybody just some background on yourself, your story, how you began Go Brewing to begin with?
Yeah, I am a entrepreneur. Started my career at Ford Motor Company, working on the assembly line in 1998, which many of you are too young to remember that age if you were even born yet. But I started there, worked my way up through the Ford assembly plant, ended up in the automotive space in the early 2000s, surrounded by dealers that didn't really know a lot about what was coming in terms of the internet. It was the de facto kind of digital guru in the Chicago region for Ford Motor Company, and that led me to create a digital marketing agency in 2011. 2013, created a software company called Dealer Inspire, and I grew that to 450 employees, many millions of dollars in revenue, and really was kind of boots on the ground from coding some of the first versions to understanding how traffic work and attribution, and have a patent in attribution. Developed a love for online commerce, and I sold the businesses in 2018 and stayed on as the CEO. Then I was the chief innovation officer at Cars.com, the parent company that had bought us. And along that time, I started drinking more than I should have. I didn't know a ton about how to make beer, but knew the industry was poised to at least do what it's doing, maybe not at the same velocity, but I knew the future of beverage, at least I thought, had something to do with the non-alcoholic space as well. And the fact that you could sell online really interested me, because previous to that, I mean, many beers and beverages that had alcohol or not even non-alcohol, they weren't being sold online. So I knew I could collect enough customer data to play at retail, and that's essentially what we did in 2022. Started brewing out of my garage. 23 we launched, and here we are in 24. We're going to be in 20 states, sold 40 some thousand customers online, and growing the business rapidly, 10x from last year.
That's awesome. That is quite the transition though, from cars to alcohol.
It is, yeah.
What are some of the, I guess, takeaways from the previous business that you're applying to the current one, albeit in very different verticals?
Yeah, and in any business, it requires creating the best team possible around you. And the last business, I felt early on that I kind of had to do everything and I had to learn everything. And this business is similar in the way that I want my hands in everything, but I really built a good team around me. I knew it was important for us to get speed to market, and I have a amazing team that has been curated and coming from places that had a ton of experience from retail to brewing to packaging and many of the aspects that we have to deal with here to be a growing company. But probably the most important thing was product quality. Product is vital, and I was very naive getting into this space, and I didn't even consider contract manufacturing. And sometimes I pinch myself that I didn't, and other times I'm so grateful that I didn't, because it really gives us control of the process and that quality aspect, which is what makes Go unique and what makes us competitive in the space. If the liquid wasn't good, I could be the best marketer in the world, I could be the best e-commerce guy on the planet, and it wouldn't really matter. So product led both companies. And then customer service was another huge aspect for me, in that the last company, we were getting up to 15,000 support tickets a month, but we would have great SLAs. We take care of customers, and we really built our reputation on that. And in e-com, I don't know if you had this experience, Brandon, but many times when you buy something online, the e-commerce customer service part of that lacks. And we're like, why don't we be excellent here, give consumers confidence? Because that's a big part of the experience as well. So taking that product and service aspect and applying it to this business was certainly vital.
Yeah, I noticed on your site you guys are using Gorgeous, which is there's a lot that's come out there in the last even year with, AI and how you can help, your support team do more with less and, get faster response times and better customer support. But you're right, like the customer service experience, especially within the alcohol industry historically, has been, not great online. In person, it's been really good. But online, it's like you gotta, pick up a phone and try and call in, and there's like no self-service options or anything like that. Especially if there's a continuity or a club program, they don't actually want it to be easy for you to cancel. You have to
Hmm.
jump through, 45 different hoops, and over time that is not positive for the company and for the brand. It might be, short term, keeping around some additional revenue, but it's actually better. Shocking. It doesn't sound shocking saying this, but it's actually better when your customers can manage their programs easily and have a good customer experience.
Yeah, no, that's right on. We have a beer club with 1,400 members and growing, and then we give people it very easy, like one click, and you could pause it, you could cancel, and if they do, that's on us. I mean, many people do because they just have too much beer in our fridge. That's the number one reason someone would pause or cancel, which I get. I've been certainly been there before on a subscription basis, but it's also giving them like new things, making it exciting to be part of the program. We just launched this new pumpkin beer. It's called Funkin' Pumpkin, and I only made it available to the beer club members because I only had enough for them. And I think something like that is really special in that we are putting our money where our mouth is, and we're investing in nurturing that community.
What really came first for you? Was it the e-commerce, presence, or was it retail? And now is it, are you really looking at like retail-led growth, or is e-com, sort of leading the charge, and then you can go to a retailer and say, hey, we don't have a presence in Minnesota, but if you look at like our Shopify sales, in these particular areas for these particular demographics, we have great sales velocity in that particular area.
You kind of nailed it. Our My business plan was to do everything ecom first, which again is very unique in the space, and then build the data story to then go into retailers and then talk to them about the fact that we have this database that's growing, that I could target consumers and lead them into your stores. And it's funny because retailers and distributors, they get nervous when you're a direct to consumer brand, and I think it's incredibly more powerful to be a direct to consumer brand because you're creating this omni-channel experience, and then it, there's a reason why the store makes sense because it's going to be cheaper. Like the beers online are going to be 30% higher because there's a lot of extra cost to ship them to the consumer. In the stores, they're you're going to get a deal. So for us to have a system where we regularly create a flow and push people to these retailer websites. We also have technology with rebates. We have a retailer ambassador program that we crowdsource our customers. We find and curate the ones that would be good stewards of our brand, and we ask them to give us leads, and when they're out at restaurants or establishments, to send those in. So we built some tech through a Shopify app that we built for that. And it really, retailers are starting to get it. They're starting to like that story. And I didn't know any other way, but I knew that that was the best place to start. And the other thing is for product iteration and styles and flavor and what people would gravitate to, the online focus is so critical for us. Like we wouldn't have been able to succeed in retail if we had not known or had data points to see what beers would actually resonate with the consumers.
Yeah, I think the data aspect is one that is such a big differentiator for a variety of reasons. But to be able to have that one-to-one relationship with the customer and get the insights and feedback and do things like your beer club and have a little bit more of a unique customer experience. But at the same time, I've heard from companies who are either alcohol or non-alc, because we used to work with a lot of CPG brands that you know this type of packaging and format is not phenomenal when it comes to like easily shipped, the margins that and whatnot that are associated with it. So how have you sort of strategized or worked around that?
Yeah, it's really a math equation on what you can afford as far as your CAC cost and your total cost all in. But I mean, the easy math is this: the average case is $55. You look at free shipping over a certain threshold, average order values over $43. The customer retention rate is 55%. So I have a first sale. I wouldn't say profitability, but it equates to the my revenue from the first sale is more than my acquisition cost for the first sale, and 55% of those customers are coming back. So whereas if you look at retail, yeah, you might not have those shipping costs, and you might not have that acquisition cost per se, but you're also selling it to a wholesaler or distributor for a lot less. So the net effect is e-com is more profitable for us than in distribution, and the top line revenue growth, it's obviously nearly double. That said, the volume in the future, I believe, is going to be largely made up from retail for our brand specifically, and that's not considering too that on the Amazon channel we're amongst the top non-alcoholic breweries on there as well.
What are your thoughts on, Amazon versus Shopify? And you're in a unique position because most of the folks that, we speak with have products that, have alcohol in them, and they can't sell them on Amazon. So it's pretty much just, Shopify and retail. But in your case, you have that Amazon distribution channel. So what are some of like the pros and cons to working with the 800-pound gorilla that is Amazon?
The pros are pretty obvious. They have an insanely large marketplace. The intent of someone there is really good. If someone's putting in the search engine in Amazon, non-alcoholic beer, we want to show up. Like that's, and there's many, many people doing that on a daily basis. So they've curated the audience. The negative effects or that I found are also maybe obvious, that when you buy from Amazon as a retailer and supplier, I don't get that data. I can't reach back out to those people and talk to them. There's some automated responses that you could do to get surveys, but Amazon doesn't pass over their information. And that makes sense, right? Because look at how much we buy from Amazon. If we got hit with every single supplier that hit us that we bought on Amazon, our email boxes would be worse than they are. So I totally get it, but that's a disadvantage. The other disadvantage is they change the rules often. When you're in an area like non-alcoholic beer, it could get flagged for alcohol. They can say, which they have, like non-alcoholic beer is not allowed on FBA, and then they'll go back and they'll change it. And then there's just really confusing, conflicting rules when it comes to our product specifically. And there's certain states that we can't sell our product to that do consider it beer. So it gets pretty convoluted quickly, and that creates risk for a brand like ours, because if you have something in FBA, and for those that don't know the difference between how you can sell on Amazon, there's a few other ways as well. But for this example, there's FBA, stands for Fulfilled by Amazon. So what a company like ours does is we'll put a bunch of pallets on a truck. Those pallets go to an Amazon center. Amazon checks it in, and that's when you get the Prime badge. And anyone who purchases through us that Amazon facility, they fulfill that order. And then there's FBM, which is fulfilled by merchant, and that would be very similar to like a Shopify order. So it connects to our Shopify account. It just comes in through the Amazon marketplace, but it's our own fulfillment here as well, or a 3PL, which would be like an outside party who would fulfill that. So it's, they change the rules. Sometimes things get lost. You have a lot of inventory in some place, and to you it's everything. And to Amazon it's nothing. Like it's a big disadvantage that we lost sleep over.
Yes, they have definitely. I mean, I've heard stories where FBA is really a blessing and a curse. Because you are sort of at the whims of this giant corporation, and if you end up in the wrong pile, or if you're not getting the right communication channels, then you can be really in a bad place. There was one in particular that they were like impacted around the holiday season, and so they basically missed out on like 3 weeks of some of those peak sales because of some nuance within FBA that really screwed them over.
Yeah, no, it's real, man. I live it. You also need to have dedication to it. You can't wing it. Even if you go through a third party, you need eyes on it. It's your party, it's your product. And there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of emails. It's a lot. It's like taking care of another child in a way.
You mentioned that you had built in an app.
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts around building versus buying off the shelf tools? Because the alcohol industry historically has had to deal with a lot of custom proprietary tech because of the rules and regulations around being able to ship direct to consumer when there is an ABV percentage. Especially wine's the easiest, beer's second, and then distilled is very challenging. Um, but it's been a lot of proprietary tech, and now they're sort of dealing with the ramifications of that because there's a lot of tech debt. It's very hard to maintain, and you have these massive platforms like Shopify that the speed of innovation at which they're moving is impossible to be matched by an in-house team.
Mhm.
But at the same time, there are instances where there isn't something off the shelf that you can use. So how do you go about that evaluation process, and what makes you say yeah, well, we're going to double down on this and actually build it ourselves versus we should be looking at an off-the-shelf solution?
It really depends what it is. I appreciate your question, though. This is a fun one to answer because if someone is not using Shopify and they have an e-commerce business and they're looking for tools or to build themselves, that I would think that is a very, very foolish move. Shopify has so much infrastructure. They make everything easy compliance. Like it's well worth what it is. It's incredible. I came from building WordPress websites. We built literally 10,000 WordPress websites. And I go over to Shopify and I'm like, this is unbelievable. And the plugins, the systems like Klaviyo and everything else you could use to plug in here, I'm still like blown away by the value that they provide, honestly. Where I run into like the build versus buy, if it's out there and it fits my needs, I'm going to try to use it because I'm not in the software game per se anymore. I'm not selling software. However, I think I'm going to end up at some place where I'm creating a separate entity because I can't help but look at the issues in the space and create software to solve some of those. And one of the big things that I realized the software that we built is really has to do with the model of account reps. I went on a ride along a year and a half ago with someone, and I spent an 8 to 10 hour day going to 6 or 7 places where we were just waiting around for the decision maker to come in. And I'm not going to say it was a complete waste of time, but 90% of it was wasteful. And although I love that experience, I was thinking about like just a rep's efforts. And certainly this doesn't apply to all reps out there by any means, but for our beer, we don't sell enough to each establishment, being non-alcoholic beer, to justify reps in all these areas. Like it just doesn't pencil out, right? Versus alcohol. So I was like, okay, how do we solve that? So we built some tech to really curate and crowdsource our teams and to provide a low friction way for everyday customers that we have to send us leads on premise places that they're going to anyway. So if, for example, Brandon, if you're out and about today and you go to a restaurant by your house and we happen to have distribution in your area, that's the caveat. It's only areas where we have distribution in, which is now 20 states. But if you're out and about, you literally can send us information via a mobile texting app that we built, and we get that as a lead, and then we can follow up with that lead. And how that would look is you just go in the restaurant and you're like, hey, you have any non-alcoholic beer? And they're like, yeah, or no, or whatever they say. Your response is, hey, have you heard of Go Brewing? You should try it. And if they're like, yeah, we'd love to try it, well, you send us that information and we'll get that beer there pretty quickly. So that's the way we approach it. And the software that we built is very low friction on both the user's end, and then that pushes to a CRM, kind of this makeshift one that we built now through Google Sheets. And as this develops more and more, and if it's worth it and it's working, I'll build out other systems, more alerts. I'll integrate with VIP. I'm going to do a lot of really cool things to make it super easy. But right now this is just a really low cost way to trial out. My theory is that we can use our team members to crowdsource these efforts.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I think that's something that a lot of brands want to have, but it's a lot more difficult in practice to to get your customers to be that word of mouth for you, unless you have a very unique and compelling product and customer experience. And so, I mean, that's definitely a testament to you and the company you're building, that you actually have people who are willing to do that. Because I've seen the back ends of so many referral programs that have pretty much zero traction, whether it's for wholesale accounts or more traditionally for just referring friends to a particular brand.
Yeah, no, it's we have people that are so active in this that they're sending 20, 30 leads, closing 10, 15 a month, more than if maybe if even if I had a full-time rep. I mean, some are taking it extremely seriously, and we're incentivizing them to do so, because it's not all. We can explore those boundaries without violating any state laws too.
Yeah. When it comes to distribution, how are you thinking about expansion beyond those 20 states?
Well, the 20 states are really new to us. So we entered this year with like 4 to 5 states.
Okay.
So we just brought on a bunch. We're launching the East Coast. By the time this comes out, Wegmans, which is a huge chain on the East Coast, so we're launching that. We have another huge chain in the Midwest that we're going to be launching, and our focus is on some bigger states out west. So really, right now, that we wanted to own the Midwest first, but by happenstance, we had some opportunities out east, so we really focused on those, and now we're going to start moving out west. So it's been very intentional. As things pop up and people reach out to us, or we find a good fit with a distributor or a retailer, it really allows us to kind of pivot and navigate the waters in a different way.
One last question for you before we get into the two fun ones. What are some of the most beneficial ways that you've leveraged AI, this year in improving, certain components of, your business operations, or, marketing, or whatever it may be?
I don't even know if like analytics platforms are useful anymore. You can put so much in, let's call it ChatGPT. I know there's a bunch of them, but ChatGPT is one I like to play with probably the most. You can put so much data in there and analyze it, from Google Analytics to Shopify data to product data. And the cool thing about it, and that'd be really hard to do with another platform, is you can build on it. You just build, build, build. So you can take one set of data and you can get an output. You could add your reviews. I imported all our reviews. I tried to understand like what problems we're solving for people. Then I take that data and I use it for our marketing, because in marketing, you want to talk about problems you're solving. That's one example. You look at different beers that are resonating. What are they talking about? Is it the flavor profiles? Is it the calories? What that really led us to create more packaging. AI for zero-party data, that is post-purchase survey data. You buy on our website, we ask some questions, we take that, we put that, we have the AI systems ingest that. And the cool thing is, everything I'm talking about is like one long thread of data that in the end, you're like, okay, who are my personas? And you can use that for marketing. You can understand for product development, like what's working. You can look where your website traffic's coming from, where your strongest loyalty base is. Like, one of our top markets is California, and we don't have distribution there, but we sell a lot of direct to consumer there. So it allows us to then analyze that in the future and say, okay, well, when we're ready to open up California, we at least have enough data and proof to talk about it intelligently to a retailer.
No, the reviews one is something that, and really to your point about analytics, I agree with you. Like, I think so many analytics platforms are just like visualizations, but they're not like actually giving you the insights. And that's what you're doing with all the things that you just mentioned, is taking that raw data and then, it's like, okay, great. Now what the hell do I actually do with this? And it's really closing out that end piece there, and making it so much more accessible to businesses of all sizes that aren't, these giant corporations anymore.
Yeah, just a recent example, we got our reviews back from GABF, the big beer festival, and there's 21-page PDF. I added that to ChatGPT and I said, what are strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and what would you do differently? Send that to a brewing team, done. Like I did read them all first, but I mean, that's just an example. It summarized them perfectly.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited to see how it will continue to evolve and, allow us to be more productive and spend more time, like, thinking strategically and creatively versus, having to do a lot of these like manual processes or the summarization of stuff when that can just be handled like that now.
Yep.
Well, enough with the serious questions. Let's jump into the two fun ones. So, I did give you a little bit of a warning on these two, but let's start with the first one, which is what is your favorite alcohol memory? Non-alc or actual alcohol.
Favorite as in fun, I would say there's so many. I had my own apartment in high school. So I go back to the time when I was really drinking a lot. It was actually when I was really underage. And it had insane moments. Like people would climb through my windows and just, I could never have a night alone because where I grew up on the southeast side of Chicago, like there was just a ton of people looking to have a good time always, and my place seemed to be always available. So I think that in itself lended it to these memories of alcohol. If I had to like correlate a time period in my life with heavy drinking, that is it for sure. And that is also where I learned. I came to death's door pretty closely and drinking way too much on an occasion, which I continuously think about now and how dumb I was in certain times of my life when I was younger. And that was just there's also a bit of negative memories, but like I don't look back at life and regret things per se. I look at them as like those are lessons to learn, and if you keep repeating them, then it's silly, So that was one, but there's many. I'm sure you have many too.
Yes, I grew up on the northwest side of Chicago, and so not the exact
Oh,
same.
get out of here!
Yeah, Lake Zurich, Lake Zurich and North Barrington.
No way, small world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was actually back in Chicago. It was like 2 weeks ago. Did a Cubs game, but are you a White Sox fan? If you're,
I'm a Cubs fan actually. It's
yeah.
weird. I know, like Southsider, that's a Cubs fan, but long story behind that. But yeah, Cubs.
Well, we can debate which pizza is the best after this podcast, but
Oh,
um, it is still a hot topic, and I have friends who will come there, and I'm like, "You're wrong," and they're like, "No, you're wrong." And I think
are
there's
you a deep dish guy or a thin crust guy?
generally thin crust, but like if I'm gonna go home, I'm gonna get deep dish, and I grew up eating Giordano's, and I liked it more than Illuminati's. Um,
Oh man, we differ there.
yeah,
Yeah, I
I
love Lou.
it's an unpopular opinion. Like the more people that I talk to about it, pretty much everybody likes Illuminati's, and I'm the only one that likes Giordano's. Um,
Have
and
you had
even
the Lou's crustless pizza? Lou Malnati's crustless?
no, I have not. They have crustless.
Yeah. So check this out. They make a crust out of the sausage,
Okay.
and so it's essentially like carb free, and then they build on that. So it's like the crust is sausage, then it's cheese, and then tomato sauce, and
Oh,
then more sausage. It's like so
yes.
bad for you, but it's amazing too.
I think I have had this because I was keto for a while. Um,
Yeah.
and obviously you can't have pizza if you're keto. Um, and so I went down the rabbit's hole of some of these like interesting and unique takes on pizza, but I am very much so glad to be just eating regular pizza again.
Right. Yeah.
um, well, last question: if you could share a bottle with anyone, what would it be, and or sorry, who would it be, and what would you drink?
I mean, today I would take my NA beer and I would have a meeting with Jeff Bezos. I think that would be the person that I would like to hang out with and just pick his brain and talk about innovation. I think his story is incredible, like many entrepreneurs, and what he's done to build this marketplace. There's so much to learn from. But yeah, I think it would be non-alcoholic beer today. I would want to remember the whole thing.
Yes, that definitely helps with the non-alcoholic. One completely unrelated question, but how do you get the actual flavor profile, that to be, close or similar to, beer when you're not like you don't have, the alcohol in it. So is that, replaced by sugar content or like how, what is some of the science that, behind how you can actually create this?
Yeah, I tell people it's half magic, half science, but the reality is there's still alcohol in our beer. It's just under 0.5%. And if you came into our brewery, and you watched the process, you would have no idea that the output was going to be non-alcoholic beer. It's really a product of time, temperature, and ratio, and a proprietary system that we developed really from my garage. Like we were kind of forced to not use a dealcoholizer early on because that's how we launched. Like we weren't going to launch if we couldn't figure it out how to do it without it. Just because you can't really half-ass that, and that's why many people, as you know, contract brew because to build the infrastructure for a brewery in general is crazy. And then you're dealcoholizing. Not only do you have to get that machine, but a ton of utilities to go with it, and then you need a pasteurizer on top of it. So the non-alcoholic beer space is not an easy one to just dive into. So that's some of the things that I knew and didn't know getting into this, but the flavor profiles are using almost the same exact ingredients that you'd find in a beer of that style with alcohol. So like, for example, our Pilsner uses German malt in it, and it uses hops, the same ones that any other beer would use. We use the same mosaic as any other beer would use. So there's nothing like, we don't push sugar in it or anything like that. We've just really developed this finesse to make the beer taste like the appropriate style. And because it's not dealcoholized, you don't really get that after flavor that you can get otherwise.
Got it. No, that is unique. I didn't realize there was a difference between the, dealcoholizing it or not. That's really cool. But yeah, that is definitely a lot of time and investment on that front to not go the contract brewing route. Do you have, like, is there a tasting room style business in the same way that there is with, like some of the wineries that we talked to and tours and things like that?
I used to think we were the only non-alcoholic brewery in Illinois. I think we might be the only one in the nation with like an actual tap room that you could go to and have 14 different NA beers on tap. We have programming every weekend, live music. We have athletic events. We have storytelling. We have all kinds of stuff. So it's, gobrewing.com. You could look at our events if you're in the Chicago area. So we have that absolutely. We don't have like program tours because traffic is unpredictable sometimes, but we have anyone that has an interest, anyone listening to this podcast, they could hit me up if they're in the area. I could give them a tour. We also have another facility we've invested in and partnered with a mile away from here that we now do a lot of manufacturing out of because we outgrew our current brewery in terms of capacities. So it's there's a lot to look at, a lot to see, a lot of automation that we're building. It's pretty cool. So we absolutely have that though.
No, that's awesome. Where is it located?
We're in Naperville.
Oh, okay. I fly back into Chicago tomorrow night, so I might have to come check it out.
Come by.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on and joining me today. I think you just mentioned it, but just to reiterate, before we hop, where can people find you online?
Online, gobrewing.com, on Amazon as well. And then you could go to our store locator to look at the stores that we're in near you in Chicagoland. We're in all the major chains, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, all the same. Now we're launching Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, a ton more states there. So any of those places, we'd be honored to have your listeners try our beer and give me feedback. My email is joe@gobrewing.com. Would love to hear from you too.
Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate it. For everybody who's listening, as always, this is Brandon Amoroso. You can find us at drinks.com, and we'll see you next time.